All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our fourth episode of The Quad. This is the first one that I'm going to be a part of, and as soon as we get there, okay, we've got Fekez back. His camera died there for a second, but yeah, welcome everybody. This is going to be a show tonight. It's called The Quad, and we were discussing this earlier. It has nothing to do with quadriceps at all. No muscles involved here because we're all nerds and none of us work out. Just kidding. But so tonight, in case you guys are wondering what's going on here, this is pretty much just us talking about the CSL season, Collegiate League of Legends in specifically. And yeah, so we're going to go over CSL and then talk about some other Collegiate League of Legends stuff going on. If you guys have any questions during the broadcast, make sure to drop a comment in chat. We'll go ahead and tweet out everything out there. And of course, speaking of Twitters, we have 3 of the best Twitters out there and Zach's. But we'll go ahead and introduce everyone here. In case you guys are wondering, Fekez and I, you probably get a chance to hear on the normal CSL broadcasts. And my Skype sounds you probably get to hear right now because I didn't mute them. But here we go. So yeah, so let's go ahead and get some introductions going on. Fekez and I cast CSL. I've been casting for about 5 years now. Try to follow the competitive League of Legends scene as much as possible. Keep an eye on the collegiate players and see who's awesome and who is more awesome. Yeah, enjoy casting, and that's pretty much why I do it. Fekez, what's up?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm good. I haven't been casting for 5 years. I think I've actually been casting for about 3 or 4 now. I've actually
Basically
lost track.
forever.
Yeah, I've lost track. But hi, yes, you hear me with Rapid every Monday and Friday, and now sometimes a Sunday. Apparently.
Yeah, sometimes too much Fekez out there. But yeah, Fekez and I think we've been casting for, feels like forever.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So moving on to the actually important people, our wonderful staff writer, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Matt, aka Hyungnim, staff writer for League of Legends over at CSL. I write about what you players and fans do in your spare time, and it's awesome. It's wondrous.
Yeah, please never write about what I do in my spare time. Involve a whole lot of feeding, so we're just gonna move on from that. But yeah, Matt is our staff writer, and in case you would like to follow him on Twitter, you can see his and all of ours right there. And of course, our special guest for this episode of The Quad. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Zach.
I'm Zach. I am the coordinator for the collegiate team SIUE. We're currently attending the playoffs that started this past weekend and will be going on for the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, so playoffs have just started. It's a pretty exciting time, and I know the first few matches have been played there, but I'm not sure if everything's been totally updated just yet. So there's a lot of action. I know it felt like forever to get through the first half of the season and then the second half of the season, and now here we are already at playoffs. So I think that should be a good place to go ahead and start things off as far as talking about what's been going on in the CSL. Where do we stand? And I know Matt checked up on some bracketology and talked a little, so maybe we should talk a little bit more about where the teams stand and which teams you kind of expect to see where.
Well, I've done a little bit of homework on all sides of things. When you're staff writer, you got to talk to teams so you can write about them. So, today I went through, I did they wanted me to get predictions out there. So I went through and I did some top 16s, 8s, and 4s. Some teams we know more about than others. Some of the big names we're still talking about, of course, we're talking about Waterloo. That's a big one. McMaster is still big on this scene right now. Ottawa is an undefeated team that is a very interesting case. They actually had to replace most of their roster as of between the period of about mid-January to I believe they said about a month ago, because due to players dropping off due to personal reasons and private pursuits, and one guy for health reasons, and so they've actually got essentially a 3-week-old roster on tap right now that they've still been winning with. So it's really kind of a really interesting story over there. It'd be cool to see how they develop in particular. But I don't know. Did you want specifics out of me here? Did you want me to like spill the beans or what? I don't know. I looked at some stuff, but.
All right, finally took the U out of Fekes's name, but yeah, I think the biggest thing for probably going into playoffs, maybe giving an overview about a few of the the big teams that you expect to see doing well. Because coming into playoffs, I know there are definitely some familiar faces. I know Ottawa, Maryville, Carnegie Mellon, all teams with some big superstar players there. So you kind of expect to see that. But I think the first thing we should do is probably just talk about where we stand as far as playoffs are concerned. So just go over the some of the playoff teams. We've got teams like UBC won their B team, and of course Cal Poly State, San Luis Obispo. I've seen them in CSL I think every year since I started casting them. So pretty excited to see some of these long-standing schools come in here. So let's just go ahead and break down some of the schools that did make it playoffs that maybe impressed you a little bit. So that Matt doesn't get to talk all the time, maybe we can have Fekes talk a little bit about what's going on with the teams that you saw enter playoffs.
Well, so far, I'm actually really impressed with Maryville. Cat God and Saskio are really standout players in that team, in my opinion. And I mean, everyone on that team is really good. Maryville so far has been the team that's really left an impression on me. And I believe they're also one of the ones with the collegiate program as well for esports. So that's something that I'm actually really excited about also. And it's something that I always as a fan, I'll always cheer for a collegiate team that has an esports program, only because I want every team to have an esports program eventually. And I know that winning gets attention. That's the main reason with that. But other ones that have really kind of caught my attention, Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. We do have Zach here. And they've caught my attention as well. They're undefeated. Oh, they were undefeated during the fall for their northern region. Of course, then we had the shakeup where instead of going by regions, we went by groups to get so that way some of the East Coast can take on some of the West Coast and all that sorts. And you guys have only dropped one game. That's still pretty good though. Carleton, I think they went 5-0, 6-0. You guys are in Group 6 together, but I mean they haven't played as many games as you, so there is that. You guys are still doing really well. You guys surprised me a lot. And then there's like you said, there's all sorts of like mainstays like Waterloo who just kind of dominating wherever they are right now. Robert Morris University, UBC, the B teams of both of those. I mean they're all even for B teams, they're all still doing very well in their respective groups.
All right, well, maybe, you mentioned Edwardsville. Maybe we can go ahead and turn things over to Zach and maybe talk about what your team's experience has been in the CSL so far this year, and maybe what you're looking forward to coming into playoffs.
Overall, for our bracket, because we're in the fourth section of the bracket, I think that we got pretty lucky, I guess, because I'd say the top 5 or 6 teams in the bracket minus Waterloo are all in the top 3 sections. So I think we did get pretty lucky there. I think that Ottawa, the university, got kind of unlucky because they did get placed with Robert Morris's B team. And then same with Simon Fraser University also got placed in the same section as Maryville, who those 2 teams are most likely almost guaranteed to come out of their group.
Right.
And then I think the most interesting one is going to be the first section, because I think that it'll be McMaster versus Miami University instead of Carnegie Mellon University, because we have I've scrimmed the Miami University for ever since the fall, honestly, and they've actually improved greatly since then, and I think that they'll be a team to kind of look out for that people don't really talk about very much.
Yeah, and this is for everybody else wondering about the great state of Florida League of Legends. This is actually the Miami University in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yes, yeah, it is. It's
Just to clarify that, because it took me a while to figure that out. It's like, no, it's not. But yeah, it turns out there are Miamis everywhere. There's actually a Dallas in 3 other states. That's where I'm from in Texas. So I feel a little bit ripped off there, but yeah, and it's not just the big names that we've been talking about. Things like Ottawa, Maryville. I know Waterloo also got a mention in there. What was interesting for me is to see teams like Georgia Tech doing very well this season. Now, Georgia Tech has kind of been up and down over the course of their entire collegiate experience, but man, when they are good, they are so good, and so I'm excited to see them have a lot to offer here. Feka has just turned into Gambit in there for a second, so hopefully we can go ahead and get him back up and running. But yeah, as far as the stuff to talk about, let me just make sure that fills back in. There we go. Let's go ahead and talk about. We already got some of Zach's predictions. Let's kind of wrap around back to Matt and maybe get some of your predictions, because you did talk about the teams who were in the playoffs, but you didn't put yourself on the line.
Oh man, oh man. I mean, I think it's going to be tough for a lot of teams to compete with the big scholarship schools. So RMU and Maryville probably going to be moving on up. Waterloo's looked absolutely unstoppable. And I think McMaster is going to be very difficult to deal with. They're probably going to make their play for at least top 4. They were very disappointed with how their ULOL experience went, and so they're not just back and sort of consolidated. They're very hungry. These guys want to win big-time League of Legends events. They're psyched for DreamHack, and they got Duosec has been on this team for God knows how long. So
right.
He really wants to, he and their coordinator, Ken Lee, want to get something sort of quantifiable so that they actually feel like they've really, like, they've not only participated in this, that they've won something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think McMaster is probably my hungriest team in this tournament, and I think they can go all the way.
Yeah, definitely a big fan of McMaster. Duosec, a guy you mentioned, has a lot of competitive professional experience under his belt, and I've seen him, carry challenger teams in tournaments that weren't just limited to collegiate League of Legends. So he's definitely got what it takes. So I'm looking forward to schools like McMaster. I think my schools, I was looking for predictions. I was like, okay, let me go over the schools who are in the playoffs and maybe see who's doing well. And it's like, oh, all of my predictions are very, very boring. It's like, what do you know? I predict the top teams from each group to advance. But I think for me, watching Maryville University and through a lot of their struggles establishing themselves, and like you said, very unsatisfied with their ULOL experience. For Maryville, it just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of downsides there. They have a very well-established collegiate program. All of their players have competitive professional experience outside of the collegiate scene. And now they're kind of bringing it home underneath that scholarship that's been set up there for them. So I certainly don't see too many things in their way. For me, Carnegie Mellon's a little bit of a wild card. They seem on paper like they are set up for success in so many different ways. But like Zach mentioned, kind of based on their group, it's going to be a little bit rough for them. So I really want to see them rise to the occasion. They're not going to get an easy trip through the playoffs by any means. And so it's definitely a school to watch if you aren't just going to go with the best in each group based on their records. And that's going to do it for talking about playoff predictions. It's kind of rough to put everyone on blast because I know everybody has, not everyone has seen all of the different teams play and all the different games. We broadcast a lot of games over the course of the season, and sometimes teams look great at the beginning of the seasons, and then, like Matt mentioned earlier, just completely get a different roster. So things can definitely change over the course of the season, and it'll definitely take watching a few playoff games to really figure out where each one of these teams are. And I'm certainly looking forward to that, and hope you guys are looking forward to that. You can find out more information on the playoffs at cstarleague.com if you're interested in any more of that. Of course, looking forward to the playoffs. coming back and getting those broadcasts out there. But we've talked about CSL. We should probably talk about the rest of the collegiate scene there. We do have, CSL playoffs coming up really soon, but there's also been a lot of action happening in, Riot's ULOL tournament, their collegiate series. And for ULOL, it's been great to see collegiate teams, some of the best collegiate teams out there, really get a lot of airtime, a lot of noticeability, and really see collegiate players, collegiate organizations, illustrate how much they've stepped up their game. So just maybe turn it over to the rest of the panel. If you guys have been checking out ULOL, maybe talk a little bit about more of what's going on over there.
I have a little bit. There's not. I mean, the big teams right now are almost the exact same as far, especially the top two,
much.
Robert Morris University. Yeah, Robert Morris University and University of British Columbia. They're still just kind of kicking everyone's ass right now. I mean, it's almost. I mean, I can't say it's no competition, but they have the most wins in their conference. In fact, they both are tied at 21 wins right now. And University of Toronto, who's leading the East Conference, and then Georgia Tech, who's leading the South Conference, they haven't broken 20 yet. So, I mean, Robert Morris University and University of British Columbia, they're, just staying on par with what they did last year. And University of British Columbia, they haven't ever, since last year, they haven't stopped doing any the collegiate scene. They even went over to Korea and decided to, dominate them as well, the collegiate teams over in Korea, which I don't really know how collegiate Korean teams pair up to, like what we see, like, SK Telecom and all that jazz, but it's almost irrelevant because it doesn't matter for University of British Columbia. They just want to win, and they keep doing that. So they're continuing that trend this year. And they actually said that they were going to retire last year, the team members, but it was an all-or-nothing kind of a ordeal where if they retired, all of them had to retire. If one person wanted to stay, they all stayed. And I don't know how all that went down, but they all stayed, and they have the exact same team as last year. So yeah, they're still on fire. They're still kicking ass, and they'll probably again meet Robert Morris University in the finals of ULOL series. At least that's my prediction as far as that's concerned. Because I really like Georgia Tech. I know some people from Georgia Tech. They're actually really good company. I don't know anything about University of Toronto, honestly, as far as their ULOL series and how the people are. But bless their hearts. I don't know if. I don't know if they can stand up to University of British Columbia or Robert Morris. It's just they're big powerhouses, and if I had to write it down on paper, I would definitely put those.
Yeah, no surprise about seeing Toronto do very well in their group. Other schools in their group included, schools that you might think would be doing very well, like Harvard and Boston, but just have really not shown up with their teams this season. At least not in ULOL. But University of Maryland has also been doing really good, really well in their group. Their team this year has actually looked really impressive. I think the guy I was watching play for them was it Yami? It was really just taking names there for Maryville, and like you mentioned, for the rest of the schools in there. Maybe touch a little bit about Georgia Tech, because we've seen them play in CSL for many seasons. Now they've sort of ascended. We've still got sort of their main carry that I really liked watching was XFSN Saber, I think is his name. It was really put up some big numbers for Georgia Tech in their South Conference in ULOL. So definitely the top team leading their conference. And if you guys want more information besides just, our preferences and the things we've been talking about for ULOL, you can head over to, I think ulol.com redirects over there. But just search for University League of Legends and it'll take you right there. If you guys want to keep up on the ULOL Campus Series for 2016. So definitely a big fan of seeing all of that collegiate action.
Yeah, and I do want to hold on. We're gonna real quick. We had someone in chat, Final Sites, asking if we could discuss a little bit about why this team is so dominant. UBC specifically, University of British Columbia. Again, they've been together for a long time, well over a year. Which, if you keep up with the LCS, having a solid year, is actually like really. That's a long time, because a lot of teams get switched out. A lot of players get switched out. I mean, that's why we have drama every seasonal break between every split, it seems like, especially for NA. But these collegiate teams, they're there to stay. I mean, they don't really have much else to go. They're in college. They're going to be there till they graduate. So they're going to play League of Legends now. That's like I said, UBC though they've not only played in North America, but they went over to Korea. These guys are tight. They know each other in and out. They just know how each other plays. They know how to handle various situations because they've been in pretty much all of them. Like I said, they've played a crap ton of games together. So I don't know how the UBC infrastructure is, and that's what I want to talk.
Hey, Josh. Cannot hear you anymore, unfortunately.
Come back.
Really, you can't?
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, it's good now.
Really?
Welcome
better?
back. Yeah.
All right, where did it cut off at?
You're about to make your big point.
About RMU or UBC?
You had already made your point about UBC, I believe.
Okay, that's good. I said most things. Okay, so then, yeah. Okay, so RMU, the big thing about them is that their infrastructure is really, really good. They have coaches on their side. They have a really nice training facility. And you'd think like you don't really need a big training facility for collegiate gaming, but apparently it works. RMU, they were second place last year. They're running for a first place. Well, they're gunning for first place. You never want to go for second place. But yeah, I actually met their coach last year. He's a solid dude. He has experience elsewhere. I forget what other sports he coaches, and I apologize for that. But he knows how to handle a team. He knows what goes into practice, and he knows as far as like the psychological aspect of it, especially with that. That's a lot of League of Legends or any esports is psychological, just feeling good about yourself, not tilting, and he knows how to remedy that. I think RMU's infrastructure is, from what I've seen, compared to UPike or even Maryville, they're pretty top notch, and that I feel like that's why RMU is so freaking good, because their roster changed from last year. They're not the same roster, but it almost doesn't matter, because if you put even like decent players in a great environment, they'll become great players.
Absolutely.
And that's what RMU is.
Great players, and hopefully, better students. That's the thing that really gets me about collegiate esports. If anybody out there is watching and you're like, why should I care about collegiate esports? What's so cool is that, I went through college. Probably most people watching this have probably been through college too, and why would you watch students competing instead of the pinnacle of professional players? And what's cool for me is for pro players, that's all they do with their time. They're paid to do it, and they're not going through school. But for me, I identify so much more with collegiate players, because I've been there. I've been trying to balance all my classes together, my life. And everything else there, as well as them being good at League of Legends and trying to sort out things in a team setting. There's a lot of pressures, a lot of stresses, and so it's not necessarily who can be the best player at League of Legends. It's who can have the most of their life together and still make everything work, because you got so many pressures, so many things to work through, and that's really what's been impressive to me, that a lot of these collegiate programs not only just help you be a better player, but also help you sort out, organize everything to make sure that you have the tools that you need to succeed. So it's definitely what I see amongst most of the top teams, is that there are programs and coordinators helping out with that. Maybe Zach, you could talk about what it's like to sort of deal with the unique struggles of a collegiate League of Legends team that you've experienced so far.
I would say the biggest issues are kind of consistency, and your players kind of have a drive to want to continue, want to improve every week. And in college, it's especially hard because a lot of us juggle school and work, and those two come first. You have to put league after those, and that's something that we have always focused on, is that school does come first, and we try to work around it as much as possible. But it does make it pretty difficult to put sometimes as much time as you do want to into improving as a team. So for my team, for example, we practice 3 days a week, and then we have our matches on Saturdays. Mm-hmm. So that's 4 days, which it's pretty good, and it took a long time to get very consistent. Our team this year has only been together since like October of last year, and I'd say it took until probably the end of September, almost the beginning of November, to really get the schedule down to where everybody was always there and ready, and we didn't have delays and stuff like that. So it does take a long time to really kind of like nail down what each other wants, and you kind of have to have 5 people who all want the same thing in order to succeed in kind of like a collegiate area.
Definitely. I see some of the teams competing not just in, other collegiate tournaments, but also in CSL. There are definitely teams out there, and this is theoretically what CSL, should be about. It's like, if you have friends at your school and you want to play competitively, then CSL is a great avenue to do that. But you can definitely tell the difference, amongst the bottom teams. They tend to be just players who get together and play at their school. Maybe there's like a league group at the school, and they just get together and play. But that's not really what's going to cut it for like the pinnacle of collegiate performance. And I think it's really cool to see teams and organizations with maybe sponsorships behind them, with great coordinators who definitely help them out when it comes to organizing everything and helping keep everybody's drive alive as they go through the collegiate season. But it's definitely nice to see teams prospering a lot, not only in the CSL, but in other collegiate tournaments. And while we talk about maybe a few of the articles that, Matt has written, and maybe about a little bit more Riot's involvement in, clubs and things like that, I think before we get to that, we're going to take a quick little break so that I can get a drink of water and we can just take some time to chill out before we come back and talk about, a few of the more in-depth things going on in CSL this season. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show so far. Leave us some comments, hit us up on Twitter, and we'll be right back after a short break. So don't go anywhere. Stick around, and we'll be right back.
Yes, you're very quite tough, always having bad luck. You think you're going crazy, look up, there's a new life waiting. Your head's buried in the sand, you've been dealt the wrong hand. Can't imagine how you feel, only you know that it's real. Don't look back, just carry on, carry on, carry on. Don't look back, just carry on, carry on, carry on. Because you are stronger. Yes, you are stronger. Because you are stronger. Yes, you are stronger. quite tough, always having bad luck. You think you're going crazy, look up, there's a new life waiting. Your head's buried in the sand, you've been dealt the wrong hand. Can't imagine how you feel, only you know that it's real. Don't look back, just carry on, carry on, carry on. Don't look back, just carry on, carry on, carry on. 'Cause you are stronger. Yes, you are stronger. Because you are stronger.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else out there. Thanks for watching the quad. This was called an EA Collegiate Esports podcast before it was called a Collegiate Esports Talk Show. And I was like, hey, man, if it's a podcast and it's called the quad, we could just call it the Quadcast, right? And then we changed it to Talk Show, and I think everybody's a whole lot happier now. But welcome back to a talk show. Essentially, we're talking about collegiate esports, what's going on in the collegiate esports scene. Talked about a little bit of the CSL playoff standings. If you guys haven't been keeping up with those, you can either watch the beginning of this VOD or go check it out on cstarleague.com. And then we moved on to talk about some more collegiate esports out there and talked about the Riot ULOL series, collegiate or campus series. If you guys want more information on that, check out ULOL, and you can find out everything you want to know about that over there. But now we're actually going to go ahead and move on to talk about a few other things in collegiate esports. So for that, I'm going to turn to our resident coordinator, Zach England, to maybe let us know a little bit more about Maryville and talk about what makes good coordinators and coaches.
My input on the Maryville situation was I remember when they were in the ULOL bracket and everything, and one thing that did happen with them is they actually got disqualified, even though they won to get into the Final Eight, because there was like a miscommunication between their coach and like kind of the rules and how they were set and everything, because they accidentally ended up having their player play who was enrolled in the spring but wasn't currently taking classes in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the issue there, which is why I think that Maryville is so dominant in CSL, because they are a team that should be in the ULOL series and would probably be up with Robert Morris on challenging them on like the first and second spot, basically. So I think that is one reason why they've had so much success in the CSL, and that they're definitely a team that you will see in the top 8, if not top 2 teams in the CSL finals. Going off of that, I think something that makes a really good coordinator and coach is kind of like the psychological aspect of it, like you mentioned earlier.
Right.
And I think and like for myself personally, I am a psychology major, and it's just something that I've always really been interested in, like kind of implementing in League and like competitive gaming. I've always enjoyed kind of like analyzing games and being kind of like the coaching figure of it rather than playing. And I really do enjoy, like with my team, the aspects of kind of like watching VODs and learning new strategies that come out in the professional meta and even in the ULOL series meta, and kind of what teams show and stuff that you can learn off of, because it is a game that it's kind of like a game of seconds, and every second counts, and you have to make it to where you're as efficient as possible and that your team is um, working together to a common goal.
All right. Well, maybe talk about some specific experiences you've had, Zach, as you've been working to, play in that game of seconds and keep your team prepared. What are some of the things or some of the challenges that you've faced in, making sure that everybody has, what they need to succeed?
In most games, it's really starts with the draft and the pick and bans, and that kind of just explains to you, and you have to like understand as a team looking at the draft what your win condition is, and it's a lot based off of how each team goes about and how each team focuses on their win condition. Because if one team has to win through say like split pushing, like a 4-1 or a 1-3-1, but the entire game, they just keep grouping and fighting against like an AoE comp, then they're going to lose because they're not focusing on their win condition. And it's sometimes impossible to do it because other teams can get ahead early and kind of like force you to play their game. And I think that's the main thing, is that when you play a game, you kind of have to make the other team play your game instead of the other way around. And so that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to be the proactive team instead of the reactive team, because you're the one controlling the tempo instead of the other team. So if you are able to do that, then really, as long as you control the tempo and control the game, you should be able to win as long as you don't make a mistake. And that's pretty much where it comes in. And then once you mess up, it kind of flips if the other team is able to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and that's very true. At least from my small experience helping out with coaching some other not collegiate teams but other teams, it's really just about putting in that work to sit down and say, okay, here are our opponents. Let's look through their champion pools, maybe check out some of the other games that they played, what strategies do they run, and it really just takes consistency about that. Because any team, they know they have a big match coming up, they can prepare for it and do well, but it's about having the consistency to do that all throughout an entire season, and especially with collegiate esports as opposed to esports where those players, that's their job. With collegiate esports, you got big tests, you got midterms, you got finances, family, like all these other like struggles to worry about in your life. And maybe some weeks it's not that big a deal, but some weeks it is, and you really just have to prepare consistently. And having a good coordinator or a good coach can really just make your life a whole lot easier to perform well when you've got all this other stuff to worry about and don't have time to put all the effort in there. Coordinator coach steps in and says, hey, look, this is what we're working with, this is what we're preparing for, and it definitely goes a long way to sorting everything out. Matt, I know you've talked a lot to coordinators of teams out there. Is there anything that you've noticed that is a consistent sign for success?
In terms of consistent signs of success, man, a lot of the coordinators that I've talked to have, in some cases, designated themselves almost as like the team mom, almost, as opposed to like the team strategist, right? You don't have you don't always have like Zhuge Liang directing, the guys with his fan, but sometimes it's more like let's take Ken Lee over at McMaster, right? He goes, he sets up the scrims, he makes sure that everything's scheduled properly, he makes sure they all show up on time, he makes sure that everybody. Sometimes it requires a level of micromanagement, but at the same time, by not only staying on top of your guys, but also making sure that they're comfortable within the environment and that everything's in a place where it all kind of fits together and works. Like a well-oiled machine really helps move that process along, right? Like right. The sooner you can make this thing part of the routine, the easier it gets for your players to succeed, because it's just sort of part of what they do, as opposed to like this jarring, like, oh crap, we have a CSL match today, like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I've noticed, is that the good ones have managed to integrate League of Legends smoothly into the schedules of their players.
Right, and now you, Matt, actually just wrote about strengthening collegiate esports or just esports. What talking about good coordinators or coaches or whatever. What were some of the things that you touched on relating to strengthening esports that you've noticed or want to see?
Man, it was a really long article, and it was an op-ed, so it was a lot of horn tooting. But I mean, part of it was essentially what I've kind of observed in at least the professional scene is that there isn't a lot of job security, and there's a great deal of inherent risk, right? Which means that you've got kids who are, if you're talented enough, putting yourself out there at age 17 to go out and play for the pros. So this can be extremely disruptive to a player's, not only like his immediate life, but also his future, right? If you're 17 in America, you in all likelihood have not graduated high school yet, right? So if you drop out of high school to go play League, that means you're going to need a GED later down the road, which means that you're going to have the social stigma that goes with a GED attached to your name down the road, right? Or even if you're better, right? Let's say you're 20 and Doublelift stumbles across you in solo queue and says, this is my guy, right? This will be the man.
Right.
Well, if he pulls you out of college, right, and you come back to college later, right, you've disrupted your collegiate career at that point. You've dropped out of school. The problem is that in America, there's like a social stigma attached to leaving school to go pursue other potential career prospects that may not be long-term career prospects.
Specifically video
Right.
games.
Yeah, like it's video games, and you dropped out of college for this. Clearly, you just don't want to work hard, and that worries me, which is sort of the gap that I would plug collegiate esports in, right? If we have an example of you get some more of these sort of scholarship programs going on, then you can have a place where younger players are not necessarily being in a position where they're going to make life-damaging decisions in order to hone their craft and pursue esports. You can
Right.
go to college, you can obtain a degree while simultaneously pursuing that sort of professional dream in a little bit more of a traditional sports sense, rather than saying, all right, well, I could go play for Liquid now, or I could go for this degree in accounting, let's say. Screw accounting, I don't like math anyway, and you go for esports. But I think that the bigger problem isn't so much that you've got the successful guys having problems down the road. I think the bigger problem is if you don't look at the median or the mean, right? Like if you don't look at the 1-year wonders who go
Right.
in there and maybe they're not in their element yet, right? Like what's happened then? You've taken a year off and you've disrupted all this stuff, but you haven't got a whole lot to show for it necessarily. And you guys can feel free to like assault me on this, because everyone hates when I threaten to take away their esports. But like, I feel like this is like the gap that collegiate esports needs to fit into, because it'll give a more stable transition for these kids up through sort of the formative part of their life and into a state where they might be in more of a maybe a more mentally ready state to take on a esports as a profession.
No, that's definitely true. Not a lot of thought has been given, and maybe not due to lack of thought, but just because collegiate esports is still very, very young. I mean, it's been going on for a while, but it really hasn't developed to the heights that a lot of people think it can go to. And there haven't really been all these considerations for, well, how do I balance my esports career with my collegiate career, my education, with my future, with my maybe outside of esports career. How do you balance all of that? How do you make sure that you're taken care of in a whole lot of different aspects? Do you have a place to to go to when you graduate? Do you have, all this career? Is there an opportunity for you to come back to school if you do leave it for esports? And where does collegiate esports fit in there? Are you trying to set yourself up for a post, graduate esports career, or a postgraduate collegiate career, or actual career? I don't want to use actual career, but traditional career. Let's put it that way. And that transitionary process is one that's very, very up in the air. Only a few people have gone through that, or at least a handful of people, and it still has yet to be fleshed out. So there's definitely a lot to talk about, a lot of opinions like Matt has set forth in his article. I believe it was actually linked in chat earlier, so you can definitely go check out his op-ed on that process, or on his thoughts on the process of collegiate esports and the development of collegiate athletes, and how it prepares them or doesn't prepare them for their futures. So definitely a lot going on there. Did you have any thoughts to add, Fekez?
No, I mean, you pretty much hit everything on that one. And it's something I've given, me being trying to get into an esports career outside of actual playing the game,
Right.
shoutcasting or just doing anything in esports. Really, I just want to make money of doing esports. I don't really care what it is, but
Don't we
yeah,
The dream.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's hard, and I mean, I didn't necessarily drop out of college to do this, but I certainly didn't go to college to do this. I would like, one day to be able to translate something like that, which I guess you can. There's plenty of things in esports you can actually get a college degree for, as long as you're not actually playing the video game. But yeah, everything else is pretty much said of that as far as how I was thinking about it, because yeah, it's still young. It's still very young, collegiate esports specifically. And hopefully it gets bigger.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you've met any of these people. I've definitely met people who you get a chance to meet them, and it doesn't necessarily seem like they're not very driven. They don't really have a vision for their life. And I've actually seen esports sort of turn people's lives around, where it's something that you can get behind, get very passionate about, and just really pour themselves into, and make great career opportunities out of that. And then you always meet people who are very successful, very no matter what these guys are going to do, they're going to be successful, whether it's players or coordinators or coaches for different teams. You definitely see a lot of great examples, and I think it's just going to take some time to let these examples influence other people and get everybody on board. But there are a lot of struggles that are met by a lot of either collegiate players or just collegiate esports in general. Part of it's the legitimacy to get people to really accept this as something that takes a lot of talent, a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and can be something legitimately great. But it just takes time to kind of diffuse that. It does take great people to sort of lead us along the way. So I mean, Fekez and I are shoutcasters, so we help sort of present collegiate esports to audiences watching. So that's kind of our part. Zach here has been a coordinator and has definitely been putting in a ton of work behind the scenes to make all of stuff for his team possible, and continue to sort of raise the bar there in that regard. Matt's been putting in a lot of work, writing feature articles for us. If you want to go check out his articles over at cstarleague.com, they're all over there, and of course we did link those in chat. And so there's a lot open out there. And if any of you guys watching are interested in getting more involved in collegiate esports, certainly Star League is a great place to get started. But I would just encourage you to put in the work. It's been a lot of work for me, just preparing for everything, and a lot of work for everyone else involved, whether it's players, coordinators. But I know, at least from my perspective, it's been incredibly worth it. And I know I've talked to a lot of people who have just turned this into their passion and made it something very worthwhile for them too. So there's a lot of encouragement, a lot of love, and I think we are going to go ahead and wind things down here. I wanted to give a chance for some final thoughts to everybody else on the panel. So if you guys have anything else you want to add before we head on out of here, we didn't touch about. We can also take any questions from chat while these guys are finishing up anything that you guys have to say.
I had a comment on what Matt said earlier, kind of on the basis of where collegiate League of Legends is and how it stands with being a career in your life. Because I think that, I do know a lot of players that that could possibly, like go into the professional scene and do have the skill set for it. And but it's just such a it's such an early based program kind of, and it's very risky.
Mm-hmm.
Like he said, people can't really do the whole college thing and be a professional gamer at the same time. So, and professional gaming is, you do it and you're like, you don't really know how long it's going to last. You don't know how stable it is. And I mean, like you said before, if people do it as young as 17, then they won't be able, they'll come back to their real life, and have to go get a GAD or have to go get a scholar, go to college then at, 25, 26. And by that time, they're already 7 or 8 years behind everyone else that is their age.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about let's take one of the most ridiculous examples. Let's take Faker, right? Faker got into pro league at age 17. In Korea, you're required to do, I believe I want to say it was something along the lines of 18 months of military service.
I think it's 2
mandatory.
years, but
yeah. It's somewhere in there. And so he's going to, I mean, Faker's, the one true hero, right? So Faker's going to play for a while. Faker, let's say he finishes when let's say by 24, we say he's washed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's done. Well, he's 24. Well, now he has to finish high school. He has to serve 2 years of military service, and then he has to get a job somewhere, right? He has which he hasn't even gone to college for at this point. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's like 27 having to go to college, and it's scary to think about. And I think part of the problem is that in professional esports, you've got this mentality that, like, oh, by the time you're 21, you're starting to lose it, right? By the time you're 22, now they're on the downhill spiral, right? So it's in a place right now where you have to pick between the two, and that terrifies me.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough transition. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that's a Faker. That's Faker as an example. Obviously, he can probably live outside of esports for quite a while, maybe even forever. But I know what you mean. There's a lot of Evan Escus is one of them. I think he went back to college. There's a lot of other pro players who didn't quite make it as far as they wanted to in the professional career in esports,
Right.
and they had to fall back on a lot of things that they skipped because they had to go into esports. And as far as collegiate scene goes, that's a big benefit of being in the collegiate scene, is that you can study and play. If you can handle that, you can do both at the same time. It's a really huge benefit because if you don't go on to professional leagues, well, you still got a degree, yo. So you can go on and try to do something with that. But I think eventually, I'm gonna compare esports to League of Legends, collegiate League of Legends to we'll say football, if anybody watches that. Everything is so huge that you have states that have their own teams, which I think Riot wants to do eventually. And this is one of our topics. I know we have to cut this off. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, but I've been wanting to talk about this one. I think as Riot's goal, they took control of a lot of the collegiate gaming this year as far as the big tournaments go. I mean, they used to work with everybody, and they still do it a very small way, but not near as much as they used to. And they kind of did everything themselves. And I think one of the things that their end goal is, and there's going to be years down the road, is to establish different areas, different states with their own collegiate teams. And because you have big teams in almost every state. Just California tends to have some of the biggest ones, and right now that doesn't even matter because UBC is the one with the giant team right now. But once you get to that point and you have various states with like 1 or 2 teams per state, then you can actually have options. And I think that's once they get to LCS too, if they ever make that with the LCS, then you actually have options for these collegiate players outside of getting what Rapid said is a traditional job. They could actually go on to be a professional League of Legends player, and they might even be able to go to college for it eventually. Because right now, they can go to college. It's not like going to college for again football, where you're playing football and you have a vast array of options with football. You have so many places to be drafted to. League of Legends, you don't have that. And I think Riot wants to do that someday, but it's going to take a while. And I think then I think collegiate esports, League of Legends specifically, maybe others once they follow suit. I think then League of Legends will be taken, well, esports will be taken a little bit more seriously by everybody, because then it will actually have options for people. It's not you're just dropping out for League of Legends. No, you're graduating college and then you're going to go play League of Legends because that's what you went to college for.
Right. Maybe to talk about some of the success stories. Did see Evan RL's comments in chat about his experience going to RMU, and I know I've certainly heard a lot of great experience from people who not just even with esports, but just went through like collegiate like League of Legends clubs, and made a lot of connections there, and it really drove a lot of success for them. And for players like Evan, and I talked to a lot of former RMU players, there was definitely a lot of great experiences that they had there that really helped grow and develop them, not just as players, but also just as people going to college, students, which everybody competing in collegiate esports are. There's a lot of success stories there. I just think we need to see a lot more of them, and sooner or later everybody will get on board. Did have a couple of other questions before we just finalize everything out here. Saw a couple of questions. I had one from Pepitas, who says, which of the number 1 seeds in the ULOL playoffs could lose their first match in your opinion? And at least for me, looking at the seeds, it's interesting to see how top heavy a lot of these regions are. Like North and West conferences in ULOL are very top heavy, with the bottom few teams just having a handful of points, and top 2-3 teams just being stacked. But South and East conferences are definitely a little bit more evenly spread out, especially when you look at like the South Conference. It's got Georgia Tech, Texas A&M, and University of Texas, and I'm not just biased because I'm in that region, and because I did go to a couple of the schools in there, but just saying that a lot of the schools are sort of within very close point values, and I've definitely seen not just Georgia Tech step up very big, but even some of the schools lower down in the standings, like UT Dallas have I don't want to class them as an up-and-coming team, but a team with a lot of potential. And, of course, Texas A&M, we've seen them win huge collegiate tournaments against international collegiate teams before, and it's definitely nobody that you really want to sleep on too much. That's just the standings. Of course, we don't necessarily consider all of the playoff schedules, depending on how everything decides to work out. From what I understand, there could be some stuff up in the air. Maybe turn that over to you guys as our final question of the night. What's first seeds do you see maybe not making it through their round 1 matches in ULOL?
Oh gosh, that's the first round. That's a tough one because
I went ahead and linked it if you guys need a heads up.
Yeah. As much as I hate to say it, well, man, the first seeds. I don't really know anything about University of Toronto. I would say them only because I don't know that much about them. Because like I said, Georgia Tech, Robert Morris University, University of British Columbia, I talked about earlier. I know them. I think they're all phenomenal, and I've enjoyed watching them like every time they're on. University of Toronto, I think I might have had the pleasure of seeing them once, and I just don't know much about them. So if I had to say anything, I would say them, only based that I guess I just don't know their potential compared to the other ones. But I know everyone else's potential. I know they're all great.
Right. Toronto's got guys like JJ, So Jaded and Faded, Biofrost, a guy that we've already seen play a lot in competitive League of Legends out there. Omega B, that guy's been around in Collegiate League for basically forever. So definitely a pretty stacked roster. And it's really difficult, having seen these teams play against other teams in their regions over the course of this ULOL Campus Series, just seeing how dominant they can be. So it's hard to really pick them as an underdog against anyone else, but hey, anything could happen, and that's why you actually have to watch, which gives guys like Fekez and I a job. So big thanks to everybody out there who has watched Collegiate League of Legends, and big thanks to everyone else who's come in here on the panel. Matt, our CSL staff writer, Fekez, my co-caster, and of course Zach, collegiate coordinator extraordinaire. Big fan of you all, and thanks for coming on the talk show tonight. Thanks, Rapid. You're the best.
Yeah, thanks, Rapid. You're the best.
All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Everybody else out there watching
Rapid, you're the best.
is, man, great on the
Do it
uptake.
for the memes.
Okay, well, before we head out of here, we got one last thing to plug, and that is all of our awesome sponsors for helping make this collegiate talk show possible. The quad would not be possible were it not for our main title, super awesome head sponsor of Asus ROG. It's Republic of Gamers, and they definitely take gamers seriously, make some of the best gaming products out there. When it comes to gaming computers, I'm just like, well, should I buy a MSI? Yeah. So definitely a big fan of Asus and their products, because not only would that do they help make the season of CSL possible, but they're also financing our trip to DreamHack for the grand finals of CSL this season. Man, we've got some incredible stories that are going to happen there, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of those. Before we can finish those, you have to get through this collegiate season. So if you guys want more information on this collegiate season of CSL, head on over to cstarleague.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Collegiate Star League on Facebook and at C Star League on Twitter, and that's where you can find more information about that. And if you want to hit any of us up on Twitter, make sure to do that. You can see our Twitter handles right down below. It's at RapidCasting, at Fekez, at EHyoungNim, and at _____ England, and then 4 underscores after that to follow our good friend Zach over there. It's making it super exciting to use Twitter tonight. But yeah, big thanks to everybody else out there. If you have any comments, questions, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Maybe future episodes of the quad. So big thanks to CSL for helping put this on, to all of you guys for watching, everybody else that joined us here tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed absolutely every part of your quad experience, and look forward to maybe seeing you guys back here again. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we will see you all later. Bye.